Welcome everyone. Yeah, this is a very exciting Cypher Live. It is the first from this year, and most of you already know me. I'm the sales engineering team, and here as part of the Cypher Learning. And if you have visited and assisted to this type of event before, you already know the format. For those who have not, this is the real product. These are not going to be slides. And I promise it's not going to be any buzzword bingo. So today we're going to talk about the social learning, but it's not going to be in the traditional sense of the features or tools. We're going to be talking about how social and collaborative spaces as a way to design shared learning experiences. What we've seen over the last couple of years is that learning sticks when it becomes conversational, when it is about a community, when it is visible and accessible to everyone. The forums, the chats, and the groups, it's not only the interaction that they're bringing, but they are really becoming a shared experience as your employees and users are going through. So this session is not going to be about introducing new capabilities. Most of you already use these tools, but this is more of an opportunity to look at how these tools have evolved alongside the learner expectations and how they can all come together as an experience engineering. So let's go ahead then, and I am going to share my screen. And let's go ahead then and let's get started. We're going to log in into the platform so that we can go ahead and start looking into this experience. So in order for us to understand what is the engineering experience of social learning, let's go a little back into the few years. So many of you already have been using these tools like forums, chats, and as I mentioned before, the goal is not for me to show you how to use them, but actually and how to use them more intentionally speaking. So let's go back a little bit more into 2024 and previous years. Those previous years, we can call them as an interaction without experience. Back in 2023, 2022, the big realization across learning and development was that content alone wasn't enough, right? Courses needed interaction. People needed a way to ask questions, react, engage in that moment. Back in those years, onboarding often looked something like this. We're going to navigate over here to a course. And we're going to show you what that looked like. So over here, we had something like a single course, something called, for example, new hire onboarding essentials. We had solid content, we had policies, videos, and maybe a discussion forum. And this was turned on. So we had over here some instructions. We could see the discussion, but it was more like an optional thing. The forums were enabled. And yes, we were being able to see some activity from the participants, or we were even giving them some points for participation, but it was inconsistent. This didn't really have a purpose. It was the interaction was there, but not really an experience, not how we were going to be able to tie it. So social tools live next to content, but they were not designed really inside a journey. Learners weren't always sure why they were participating, and the instructors weren't always sure how to guide it. But the intent was right, so all the experience felt a little bit fragmented. So at this stage, social learning was present, but it wasn't really engineered. Now, let's fast forward to last year. This is where last year we were already now starting to see a designing collaboration with intent. That's going to be more of this different process. In 2025, the conversation started to shift, and learning and development teams stopped asking whether social features existed, and they started asking what behaviors they wanted to encourage. Collaboration became intentional. We were still using the same courses, and we can still use the same courses, but the experience changed. The experience changed in the sense that now we had, for example, scores associated to it, or even better, rubrics where we're going to be able to associate criteria of what we're expecting learners to have as an output. We were now reflecting a little bit of a change. It was a little bit more designed. So as you are seeing right now with our forum type of functionality, we could add now a rubric. We were able to score how learners are participating. We can provide them as well with a little bit of feedback. And this gives them much more objective type of feedback rather than just some points that facilitators or teachers were assigning to these users. Now, at this stage, really, the reflection is still a little bit more optional, but we also needed to move into a little bit more of a shared work, and this is where the team activities started to come in. And a great example of this were the group project activities. Now over here, you are seeing an example. This is a group project functionality of our platform. As you may have already seen, we have the capability to create peer or cohort-based type of elements. So as the new hires are moving beyond, for example, orientation, or as well you are having emerging leaders, it's not only enough to be able for them to understand, but how to apply it and collaborate in an environment that it is more close to reality. They need to start working in cohorts and in teams. They need to see how these activities, this knowledge is showing up in real decisions and everyday actions. So this activity is designed to make that connection a little bit more real and together. In this type of group project, your team members can be associated or grouped by different types of teams. We can have over here our team A, team B, and they are going to be able to design over here their own spaces where they can collaborate. So for example, each one of these members are going to be a map to a team, and each of these spaces are going to become spaces where they can collaborate, where they can have the discussions that they need to do. This is where really the onboarding and as well where the upskilling is going to start to feel less like a homework and more like real life work, where we are going to have news areas where people are going to communicate, to discuss things. So each of these team members gets their own private space where they feel safe to be able to discuss ideas and prepare their submissions. This really is important because this type of spaces mirror how work actually happens. People like to talk things through. They want to challenge ideas. They want to align before presenting a shared outcome. So as you are seeing right now, we have a news area. This news area allows people to communicate, to be able to discuss. They can also set up calls in the calendar and be able to set up virtual collaboration moments. Or perhaps they also want to share resources, being able to see what they have to work with, and then they can start collaborating in a wiki page. All of these functionalities are going to be customized based on the purpose of your different social learning spaces. So for example, in this type of team or cohort space, I want to make sure that I have a wiki page so that my users are going to start working together to prepare what that shared outcome is going to be like. So this area is going to be the perfect place for your learners to share, to reflect, and answer questions as well about their reasoning that they're going to have. You can also enable chats or have forums for those users. Now, let's go back over to our activity within the course, because that's where all this is stemming from. The part of the team activities being as an item within a course. So the group submission it can be assessed. Again, we can have a rubric over here that it is going to be providing us with objectiveness as we are scoring this type of information. Now, Over here, we're going to be able to track and see our team members. We can see their scores individually, or we can also see them as part of the team. So this is basically the 2025 shift in action. This is where the social learning is going to move from more of an optional interaction, as we saw with, for example, the discussion forum, into more a designed experience where it is going to be an intended activity, where collaboration is a little bit more structured. We are providing more purpose as well, and we are tying this up to the daily outcomes, as the rubrics allow us as well to map this type of criteria to a mastery of skills. So this is setting us up for the next evolution. What are we expecting out from 2026? What are we going to see, and where the L&D industry is heading towards in terms of social learning? So 2026 is emerging more as an experience engineering for social learning. So social learning is not longer something that it is going to be sitting inside a course at all. It becomes part of a connected learning ecosystem where formal learning, community interaction, and on-the-job problem solving are going to blend together. This is where the experience engineering is coming from. So we are going to now navigate over here to our groups or teams area. For today's demonstration, we're going to be using one of these different cohorts that we have in this area. Let's say that we are going to be using one called the new hires. So this is going to allow us to be able to use all of the functionality within the platform for different spaces and cohorts that are not dependent completely on a course. So in here, we are going to be able to start seeing all of these different trends tied together. This is where our platform's social and collaborative spaces really are going to come together. So one of the first principles that we are seeing as a trend is going to be community first, rather than course first. So this is one of the biggest shifts that we are moving from. Now, in the community, it outlives any single course. This is going to provide us with better maintenance. This is going to give continuity to the courses, where questions, resources, and knowledges are going to all live in here. So in this space, we can provide already a welcoming environment to your employees and provide them with a space for them to have a shared library. This is exactly where the experience really changes, because instead of having everything and resources just in general and the whole site-wide level or the platform level, or inside the different courses, this is where actually the community is going to come back to use as a source of truth. This is where people are going to be returning to. Resources can be organized as you are seeing over here on the screen. We can have different folders. And this can be organized in a way that makes sense over time, not just only during onboarding, and that you can continue to elaborate on. So for example, you can have over here the policies and the guidelines folder, or you can have another different types of folders with processes and manuals. And within those elements, you can have different types of files. These are not only going to be documents that you are going to upload, but also this type of elements are going to provide you with pages that you can still work on, so that you don't rely on any external type of tool. Now, in here, we are going to be able also to create subfolders, so that this is going to be something that it is going to allow you to continue to work on in the future. So in reality, this community is going to provide them, learners, with a quick access to the resources that they are going to be needing. These are going to actually be organized around how people actually learn and how they work together over time. You're going to be able to see spaces for maybe best practices, news, updates, and all of these type of elements and information can also be hosted within a group discussions or forums. For example, in here, you are going to see this best practices, case studies, news and updates in the industry. These are separate conversations that people are going to be having and that you can continue to add more as time progresses. Now, best practices, for example, can give us a space where new hires and new employees are going to exchange practical advice. What that it is actually going to help you ramp them up faster. This is where they are going to be able to what to watch out for. And this is how the teams are going to collaborate effectively. This is peer learning happening all naturally. So your learners are going to be able to identify whether they have already read that new post, if it's something new. They can also be able to reply or to other different types of posts. So they are staying on top of what is new and they can subscribe to the news that we are seeing in here. Now, this is going to be an area where they are all going to be collaborating. Now, the discussions are going to become actually a searchable institutional memory. This is where you can also obtain and collect all of this information to actually make it some other resources. Now, this is not where it ends. This is actually where the work is happening. Another important element and another principle that we should keep in mind as of what we're seeing in trends in the industry is that cohort-based learning is going to be shared as a journey. It's not going to just happen during one period or within the outline, but rather it's going to happen throughout the time. Now, cohorts are going to be coming back. We're seeing that trend as well because they are making learning a little bit more humanized. This is going to be brought in by that natural collaboration. When your learners move through an experience together, engagement is going to increase and it's going to follow through improvement. Reflection is going to become a storytelling and discussion is going to become a connection. So with that, what we are wanting for you to know is that we have as well this member staff where people are going to have that natural connection with each others. In here, they can see other team members, be able to communicate with them, be able to send out messages. And for those who don't know this, our platform supports the automatic translation of messages into the user's preferred language so that we are supporting that natural communication. As well, we can turn on functionalities such as, for example, having a chat room where learners are going to be able to continue to work on this type of chat room while they are navigating elsewhere inside the platform. So in this format, we are going to make sure that the experience is going to make it feel personal without being that manual with this type of communication options. Now, we have another trend that we are seeing. This is going to be another principle that it is very important as part of the experience engineering, which is learning in the flow of work. We're wanting to see not only just-in-time information, but also being able to move learning closer to where the work is actually happening. So people don't want to leave their workflow to learn, right? They want to the learning to support their actual work. So with that, CYPHER's activities feed, the messaging, the notifications are going to allow people to stay visible without being disrupted by this type of process. So with this, we're going to be able to have it not only through the chats or being able to communicate with members, but as well, we are going to be able to see in our dashboards, our activity center, where I can quickly catch up with who has done what. So in the right area of my screen, you can see very quickly who has done what and they have posted. This is going to allow the users to to become this type of elements as part of their day, not as a separate destination. They can see it all in together. Another important element is going to be reducing maintenance through a community. Something that worries most of the people is going to be, okay, I have to start monitoring. I have to start really checking out which resources they're uploading. There's a lot of maintenance happening whenever you are having, for example, separate elements inside the courses rather than having it all together in one single community. And to reduce maintenance as well, what we are going to be able to propose to our customers is to start using FAQ style discussions, wikis, evolving resources so that this become updated constantly. So topics like, for example, corporate security, policies, or recurring operational questions, they don't need constant course updates. They need shared understanding. And then this can be done through, for example, a wiki page. So let's say that we are talking about security and access FAQs. So you can have it as a wiki page over here where we are giving a little bit of instructions to the users, and the users themselves, the new employees, are going to be able to share together the Q&A. And that way you are building over here a repository of knowledge. Learning is also going to stay current without constant redesign. So these spaces are going to purposely lead you to having a reduced maintenance. This is the part where people realize that they are really not the only ones with the same question, and that they can always come back to find those type of answers. Now, let's talk about recognition over completion. That's another key element for us to be able to consider when we are designing this type of experiences. So the measurement is going to start evolving alongside with experience design. We have to consider rewarding employees as they are progressing, as they are visiting as well, and as they are participating. Completion still matters, but it's not really telling you the whole story. So the contribution, the participation, application are what are sustaining these learning ecosystems. So the way that we are going to be able to provide this type of recognition over time to our learners, it's going to be done through the gamification functionality within CYPHER Learning. So in the platform, this type of games can reinforce all of this shift by recognizing meaningful behaviors like sharing, like being able to as well comment, respond, or to contribute, or even by automatic promotion or demotion based on the activity of the user. And this is all going to be automated. So recognition is going to keep the experiences alive. You are going to notice that we have over here an example of a game. It could be called Living Our Values Together, and we can provide them with a little bit of an introduction for them to start understanding what they can expect out of this game. And we can set up levels associated to this type of game. Learners are going to start receiving points and as well as awards as they are participating in the forums, as they are replying as well to different types of posts, or as well as they are entering this type of groups, or even maybe, for example, if they are sharing resources. This type of leaderboards are going to allow me to be able to clearly see how they are participating on the far right hand. I can see how many badges, points people have been receiving when they are interacting in this type of elements. So in reality, what we are doing through this is that the peer contribution, it can be surfaced, it can be recognized, and it can be reused as well. So, for example, in our automation actions, we can start editing this type of edit activities. So whenever we add someone, we can already engage them by awarding them some points. Or maybe in your different forums of discussions, you can configure them to award different points or badges based on the posting of your learners, or as well from their replies. So we can provide that engagement process. So in reality, this structured social learning is going to also be tied to outcomes, not only in terms of gamification, but also we are going to be able to tie it as well to mastery and skills, because in this type of elements, uh, your learners are also putting into practice their new skills, or as well the skills that are required based on their job title, or as well on their goals. So in that format, the platform is going to also allow you to tie it to skills. For example, right now, this type of area is going to provide me a space to upload my sets of skills, which can come from either my library, or I can upload new sets of skills. Social learning is becoming more powerful when it is structured, when you are taking into consideration all of these different factors. Guided discussions, you have as well peer feedback, you can have group challenges, you can connect all of these elements to provide a clear outcome. So instead of just asking your learners to just participate, the experience is going to actually invite them to think, to apply, to reflect together. The structure is what it is going to become, instead of just a conversation, into a real world environment. Now, for the last point that I want to discuss with you as well is how peer learning is going to become a performance lever, right? So peer learning has moved from being culturally nice to have into a measurable performance driver. While learners are helping each other through, for example, news or the chats, or maybe even blogs, um, learners can also share solutions, and the knowledge is going to scale faster than just content alone. So with that, what we recommend is for you to consider creating your cohorts outside of the courses, but as well, if you have some cohort specific, you can still have this type of tools within any type of courses that you are having. All of your courses are going to provide you with the capability of enabling social learning, either as part of the course outline or as part of the course itself, by navigating to the features functionality and start enabling all of the tools that you are wanting to use all together in here. So just for example, being able to do forums, being able to do blogs within those courses. So with that, we are going to be able to bring it all together so that the learning is actually more aligned to reality, to creating a sense of community, to making it more human and natural. Social learning has evolved from interaction to intentional collaboration to experience engineering. The tools haven't changed as much as the way that we are using them. When social and collaborative spaces are going to be designed as part of that learning experience, learning then it's going to become shared, it's going to become personal, and it's going to become scalable. It's going to reduce at the same time maintenance, and it's going to continue to increase the engagement while connecting it all to real life scenarios and real work. So with that, everything that you have seen today already exists in the CYPHER Learning platform. The opportunity now is for you to design experiences, and not just to deliver content or to make it just one activity. No new tools are required, just different ways of thinking about what you already use. That is what experience engineering is going to make it possible for you to use. So with that, I am going to check for any Q&A that we have. Caitlin, Enrique, any questions that
Sorry.
we
No, we don't
should
have any questions in the chat right now. We did have a question asking if we would be covering this topic sort of more from a thought leadership perspective on how to enable social learning across it's more in general. And so I said that we will put that on our pro tips schedule for either later this month or next.
Excellent, perfect. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Um, as always, this is a great opportunity for us to say hi and to be able to share with you some ideas.
Yes. Thank you so much, Alexia. And thank you, everybody who joined us. As always, these recordings are saved to both our YouTube channel and our website under the CYPHER Live sessions. You can find it under resources and watch your email to get our next invitation to our next one. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.